All right, today we're going to assemble our Automata Box. We're going to put the followers and the cams and the axle and everything together. So first we want to start an assembly. Then we want to place. We're going to start with the bottom. Open up one bottom, place, get him there. I'm going to ground this bottom so he stays put. It's a good idea a lot of times to ground your first part that you bring in. Then we're going to add the two sides to it. Open those. We're going to place two sides. We're going to use a mate flush to do that. So we're going to mate the bottom of the side to the top of the bottom. So the top of the bottom to bottom of the side, say okay. And then we want to flush, we're going to flush the back of the side, or the side of the side, I don't know how you call it, to the side of the bottom. And then we want to flush the front of the side to the front of the bottom. And boom, he's done. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other side. So first thing we have to constrain is the mate the top of the bottom to the bottom of the side. Apply that. Now we want to flush side to the side. Apply that. And then we want to flush the side of the side, the front side of the front side to the front side of the bottom. And just like that, we have the sides on our box. Now let's go place the back. Stick the back on there, open him up, place the back. Okay, so this one I'm going to mate again. The top of the bottom to the bottom side of the back. Let's see where we got there. And then we want to flush the back to the back of the bottom. Apply that. And then I'm going to go back and let me zoom out so you can see what I'm doing a little bit here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the side. I'm going to mate again. The side of the back to the inside side of the side. Oof, lots of sides there. And now he should be fully constrained as well, where he can't move around. So you can see nothing moves, nothing moves, nothing moves. We're all set. Now let's go put the top on. This should be easy for you guys. That's why I'm just zipping through pretty fast. Okay, so we've all done this. My top, I put 2 holes in the top. You might have 3 or 4, depending on how you did it. Okay, again, we're going to constrain. We're going to mate the top side of the back or the sides to the bottom side of the top. Then we're going to flush the side of the top to the side of the side. And then we're going to flush the back of the top to the back of the box. And say okay. And now our box is completely ready to go. Super easy. We're good. We got the holes going through this way. For our axle, we got the holes going down through the top for our follower. So let's go add the axle on first. So let's go place my axle. So this is where it gets the first tricky part maybe, but it's not bad. So you can see I've put an axis through the middle of my axle. So you can see that little green or red line as it goes through there. If I have an axis through the center of the hole, I can mate those two things together and it will line up perfectly through the hole. You can't use insert because it's not like a round peg and a round hole. It's this square dowel through this round hole. Okay, so first we have to put the axis. When you're working in an assembly, you want to work on just that part. If you double click on a part, try that again, see how everything fades away except that part I clicked on. So the side is what I'm working on. It's almost like I have the side as its own part, where I created a part and not an assembly. So I'm working on that part. Even though I don't have that part open, I'm working on it in the assembly. So now I can go up here to axis, and I can put an axis through the center of the circle, this circle here, and you can see that axis showed up, and that's what I wanted. Okay, and you can see on the side, there's my work axis that I just created. And then once I have that done, I just click return, and it comes back, and I'm back in the assembly. Now I want to do the same with the axle. Now I've done mine. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to redo it just so you guys can see, because you probably don't have that done. So I'm going to double click on the axle. Everything disappears or buzzes out so we can see just the axle by itself. I'm going to go into my axle. See, I have this work axis with all these parts. I'm going to delete that. You won't have it. So this is probably what you have. Okay, so I have to make an axis. Well, there isn't anything in an axis that says put it through the center of a square. Okay, so I can't put it through the center of a square, but I can go through the intersection of 2 planes. And to me, that's the easiest. There might be another way. If you find another way, great. This is what works for me, so this is what I do. So I'm going to do mid-plane between 2 planes. I'm going to do the front side and the back side of this axle. I'm going to click both of those, and you can see I have that work plane now down the middle. We're going to do the same at the top and the bottom. We're going to do the same mid-plane between 2 planes. We go to the plane of the top to the plane of the bottom of the axle. And now, let me zoom back around so I can see what we're doing. You have those work planes. See how they crisscross right there? And go this axis through the intersection of two planes. I'm going to pick that plane I just made with that plane I just made. And now you see there's that axis. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make both of these things invisible because it's just a lot of extra going on. Okay, so now we see my axle has an axis that we're going to line up with this axis we just made in the side. So now return back to the, click return on the top right corner. So we go back to the assembly. And now when we constrain, we can mate this axis with this axis and it lines it up perfectly. Okay, I'm going to say okay. Now you can see, let me try to see if I can grab the part. If I grab that, I can go in and out of the hole. I can't go up or down or side to side or any other direction. Right? I can't grab him and go, it just goes through the hole. That's all it'll do. So now we got to keep him from moving through the hole. We got to line him up. If we look straight on from the front and we move him over, you can see he's longer than the box. Okay, and then we would like him to stick out at each end just a little bit. So if we constrain, and first I'm going to do what's called the flush that we've used before. I'm going to flush this side with the side of the side. Okay, now before I say apply, let's go look at that. I just said I wanted to come out both sides, but if I flush it, it's only going to come out one side, not the other. But there's this wonderful thing called offset. And in this offset, let's say I want to go half an inch. I'm just going to type 0.5 in here. You can see it offset. See how it shoved it over? Now it went left. I want it to go right. Okay, so opposite is that little negative sign. So you type in a negative, and it tells it to go the opposite way. And it moved it to the right. And now it's sticking out of both ends just a little bit. And then we say, okay. And now our axle is lined up and perfect. It can spin, which we need it to spin, but it can't go in and out. It can't go up and down. Can't go side to side. It just spins around in a circle. Okay, so let's go add our crank. Crank's pretty easy to add on there. You could have added the crank first. Doesn't matter. Place this. Again, we use our mate flush flush. So we go down here. We're going to go mate this to this side over here. Apply. Get me back where I was so I can see what I'm doing. And then we're going to flush this top part to this top part. And this front side to this front side. And say, okay. And now I've got my handle, which is easier to turn my crank without the handle. Okay, and now we go around, we go. I'm a pain sometimes to get that to turn. You gotta get the right spot going. Okay, now we're gonna add a follower and a cam. So let's just go grab our follower first. We're gonna do the same thing with the follower that we did with the axle. I'm only gonna do one of them. Of course, you would do 2, 3, or 4, depending on what you're gonna do, but they're all the same. Once you figure out one, you got them all. So you can see in my follower, I put that same axis. So you wanna do the same thing, just like we did with our axle. Double click on your follower, create that axis, right? We're creating those 2 work planes. You can see my 2 work planes that I created in there. And we're all good. But I've already done it, so I'm not gonna do it again. And then we need an axis in this top part. We don't have one, so we're gonna double click on the top. We go say an axis through the center of a circle or elliptical edge, boom. Now you can see we have the axis. Okay, now since we're here, I'm not gonna do 2 of them, but since you're here, you should probably do it for the other hole or holes that you have. Okay, when you got it done, just click return and you're ready to go. And now we're going to go constrain. First, we're going to mate this axis to this one. And now we got it lined up. And we're going to say OK. And now this guy, he'll go up and down, which we want him to. So we're not going to flush this one because we got to line him up with the cam. So from here, we kind of have to wait until we get the cam on there so we know where he's going to go. So let's go get a cam. So I'm going to go place, and I forgot to put a cam in this folder, so I got to go to a different folder where my cams live. Try to get everything in the same folder. It makes your life easier. But since we're just demonstrating, let's try, I don't know, how about a pair? Seems like a lot of people selected pair for their choices. Yes, I know it's not in the right folder. Okay, so now we have my pair cam. Now I have to line him up on this axle. Okay, so first I'm going to use a couple constraints, just like we did when we tested it. We're going to use the bottom side of this guy. Doesn't really matter to which side. I'm going to do it at the top of this. Okay, and that looks awful, but that's okay. So, okay, now when he gets on there, it's hard to see the hole anymore, so I'm going to move him off. Just remember, I did this side where the fat end was to the top up here on the opposite side of the crank. So now if I flip him, if I do this inside where my arrow's pointing to the front side, he should be good. So the tough part is kind of just figuring out what you want to constrain and where. Once you figure that out, boom, he works out pretty good. Okay, now where are we going to put him side to side? Well, I don't know. Now, if I know where my hole lives, right, if I know the distance from the side, I could do some sort of flush and offset and push him over. Okay, I'm going to just line him up pretty close. And then if I look at my follower, remember I had that work plane in there? Let's go look at those work planes. Okay, let me get up here where we can see him a little bit better. Oops, zoom the right way. There we had those two planes. I'm going to take that plane or that one. We want the one, see how the curve is going there? We want the one that's going not along the curve, but across the curve. Okay, so we want that plane right there. Not this one that goes across, but it goes along. And we're going to make him visible just so I can see what I'm doing. And then if I look at my pair, remember we made that work plane down the center so we could line him up? I'm going to make that visible so we can see him as well. So now we have those two work planes. If we line those up, then the follower and the cam will stay lined up where they should be. So I'm going to go, I think flush usually works better with this. Sometimes mate works better. Just try one. If it doesn't work, try the other. That's really kind of what there is to this stuff. Sometimes it's hard to see them. Boom, heard him line up. Okay, so now my cam should not move side to side anymore. See, he can't move side to side. And he's stuck to the crank, so when I turn my crank, the cam current turns around. Now I got to align the cam and the follower so he sticks to him when he spins that the cam's stuck, right? So the cam goes up and down. I'm sorry, the follower goes up and down as the cam goes up and down. So we've done this constraint as well. This was a transitional constraint. So we constrain, transitional. We want that little curvy part of the bottom. Sometimes with this, you have to select this outside edge. See, I kind of had that edge. And say, okay. And then you guys got to test it because sometimes it works and sometimes you have issues. This one looks like it worked that time. Sometimes if you select just that little back side or the front side, then it won't go around the whole way. It goes halfway. If it doesn't work, just undo and try again. See how it goes around and it stays stuck right to it. My axle won't move it out. My cam won't move side to side. My follower, he's stuck, right? I try to move him up down. He'll only go with the cam. And now we just got to do the other 2, 3, whatever more cams we have, and you are done. That's all there is to it.